Hello, boys and girls. It's time for some more psychobabblical, psychobabblicious musings about depression, which is a subject very, very near and dear to my heart. The stance that I have, generally speaking, on depression is that people all too quickly turn to chemical solutions for emotional and usually lifestyle problems, which seems redundant and dangerous. I've already mentioned on another video, which I'll link to this one, there are certain lifestyle things that you can do that will actually improve your chances of not developing feelings of depression. Things like sleeping properly, training, hydrating yourself properly, alterations to diet, that kind of thing. But on this video, I specifically want to look at a few different options that I've come up with that I've used for myself over the years, because I do occasionally experience these weird bouts of really, really strong depression that can just be like a bolt out the blue. Now, there's the depression of normal folk, and then there's the depression of somebody who has a degree in psychology, is a master practitioner of NLP, and has several years of life coaching and motivational speaking under their belt in one form or another. That there's normal depression, and then there's shit, I should know better, and that's really depressing. That's a whole other level of depression. Let me tell you, when you know that you know exactly what the mechanisms of what's going on, yet you can't seem to stop it. So what I like to do is I like to formulate strategies, because I'm no great shakes as an intellectual, but I'm pretty good at turning stuff that's can be quite highbrow and quite intellectual and quite cerebral, and then distilling it into something that's actually practical and functional. And so, true to form, I've come up with an 8-step strategy, because I love bullet pointing things and turning them into strategies and steps. It makes me feel in control. Bear with me. The first thing that I've noticed that works quite well is for when depression actually gets really, really bad. So you have depressive thoughts that you can recognize, and you can probably you dodge them a little bit, but then you've got like a succession of circumstances that have led to a succession of depressive thoughts that then actually put you into a state that we would call depression. When to depress something is, remember, the linguistic root is literally to depress, means to push something down. Where you feel depressed, you're pushed down by the weight of negativity, of negative emotion and despair and doom that you're feeling. So this first step is particularly for that, when depression gets really, really bad, is actually just to allow the depression and allow the depressive thoughts to come in, to sit with them in quite a Zen-like way and just observe them. This is the only thing that works when depression gets really bad, because if you've suffered from depression, you'll know that any other strategy that relies on you doing something and being proactive kind of goes out the window, because you're depressed. You can't say to people, hey, fight the depression, challenge the depression and do this and do that. It's like, I don't want to. Why? Because I'm depressed, dumbass. It's almost like a double bind. It's like this negative downward spiral, whereby you probably could do something about the fact that you're feeling depressed, but you're too depressed to do something about it. So this first one is really good. Observing and allowing the thoughts is to simply sit with the thoughts and reflect them without fighting them. Allow the thoughts to come in, recognize them as thoughts, recognize them as feelings, and stop fighting them. And it's amazing how you'll still be depressed, but how it can actually alter the way you feel to simply passively accept them and to allow them completely. So your brain is saying to you, life is really shit, life is really hard, nothing works out. And you just reflect back, you just say, okay, I accept that, I hear that. Life is really shit, life is really hard, nothing works out. People are scum, everything is awful, everybody's so selfish, the world is a dreadful, cruel place. And you just simply reflect back, okay, people are scum, everything is awful, the world is a cruel and depressing place. Now, you might think at an intellectual level, you go, no, that's going to make me more depressed. If I don't fight it, it's going to make me more depressed. But actually, if you think about patterns of thought and patterns of behavior that generate emotional states, they have to lock in place and they have to run for a period of time. Your resistance of the depressive thought can actually help to support the depressive thought unintentionally. So the depressive thought comes in, you fight it, it wins. The depressive thought comes in, you fight it, it wins. The depressive thought comes in, you fight it, it wins. And you get tired, you get like emotionally worn out just by the sheer weight of these depressive thoughts. Where if you're not fighting it, there's no win. If you're not fighting it, there's no loss. You're just accepting it. And it's almost like, this is very much the Eckhart Tolle or Thich Nhat Hanh, both of them from more of a Zen tradition approach. This is more the Zen Buddhist approach to mental illness, is actually to allow these mentally ill, unhealthy thoughts to come in, not fight them, to accept them, to sit with them, but not lose your sense of self and not lose your capacity to observe, because you are not your thoughts. It doesn't matter what you're thinking. A couple of years ago I had to see a counsellor, a very, very good counsellor, who hopefully I'll interview on this channel one day. And it was because I was experiencing depressive thoughts, but I was also getting extremely anxious thoughts. And what was making me anxious was I was getting bouts of rage, extreme rage, where I wanted to behave in extremely violent ways towards people. And fighting it was making me not depressed in this instance, but anxious. So it's like this model of the mind where if you repress something over here, something bad kind of, starts to break down over here. And that does seem to work. That model of the mind does seem to work. The resistance and the suppression of emotions and thoughts and feelings does seem to have negative impact elsewhere. And in this particular case, the counsellor, she's a very good counsellor, very good life coach, actually said to me, you are not your thoughts. So just allow those thoughts to come in. They're there for a reason. There might be things that need dealing with, there might be issues that need healing, there might be something you need to do with your life, but you are not your thoughts. And I just allowed them to come in, and it actually created a gap, an opportunity for things to change. Okay, step number 2 is just to gently challenge these depressive thoughts as they come in, gently. So depressive thought comes in, everything always fails and the world is a horrible and cruel place. And you say, okay. It's like step 1, you allow it, you're patient, you allow it, you say, okay, the world's a cruel place. Is there any time, anywhere, where the world is not a cruel and awful place? Nothing ever works out, oh my God! Has anything ever worked out? Have you actually experienced any degree of success? Have you seen any kind of human kindness or progress in the last 3 weeks, 6 months, or whatever? Gently challenging these problems. And as you sit back and observe depressive thoughts, and as you gently challenge these problems, what you'll start to notice is depressive thoughts and depressive thinking is actually quite irrational and quite illogical, and depends on huge generalizations. In order to get depressed, you must allow huge generalizations to slip into the mind unchallenged. Things like, nothing ever works out. Nothing ever works out. That's a huge generalization. People are always, insert negative attribute, cruel, selfish, duplicitous. Always. What, always? Are they always? So step 2 is just to gently challenge it. Obviously, this is not a mind game. Your rational mind can't win versus your emotions. But what you can, you'll notice that depression cycles. It cycles down and it cycles up. It cycles down and it cycles up. As you're cycling up and it's not too bad, when it's really bad, you should just observe and allow and be passive. When it gets a little bit better, that's the time to really start look at the generalizations and actually start to think, hang on, how is this true? How are these thoughts actually based on anything that's to do with reality? Step number 3 deals with suicide. When suicidal thoughts come in, okay, this is something I could talk about for a long time. I'm going to talk about very briefly. Suicide tends to be about options, okay? Fundamentally, we know that there is a psychological principle at work that every behavior, no matter how seemingly twisted or destructive, has a positive intent. Suicide has a positive intent. When a person has no options, or where every option they seem to have available to them, they think they have available to them, is painful. So when every option is painful, or when there seem to be no options, that is when suicide becomes an option. What's the positive intent? Well, the avoidance of pain. When living is painful, and it just seems to be getting more and more painful every day, suicide actually is an option that seems to the individual to have a positive intent. there is a lack of rationality again, though, a lack of logic here, which is having taken that option, all other options completely collapse. So you effectively kind of work against yourself, but that is an extra added element of suicide. It's the ultimate act of self-betrayal, the ultimate act of self-harm. And obviously you have to have been in an extremely negative state for a long enough period of time to actually want to be looking at taking that option. When those thoughts come up, remember, I want you to think options straight away. That means you are running out of options. That means you feel like there is no hope. That means you feel like despair is truly setting in. Start considering your options. Your brain is only ever going to throw up suicidal thoughts when there is no end in sight and you've got no options. So start thinking about your options. What are your actual options? How can you take action? How could things be different? You go into this black depressive state and you're like, there are no options. That's why I'm so fucking depressed, because there are no options. Okay, what would your options be if you did have options? What options would you love to create if you could just wave a magic wand and just create an option? If you change this over here, would that give you not even slightly another option over here? Is there not, the brain is a question answering machine. If you ask better questions, you will get better answers. The quality of the answers we get inside of our minds depends fundamentally on the quality of the questions we ask our brain. And those questions that we're asking, they control the focus, they control the mental focus, which brings us nicely into the fourth part of the strategy, or the fourth consideration here, which I've called the veil of tears. Now, this is the element of depression that I think is probably the most insidious and self-destructive, and it must be understood. The veil of tears, right? This is not a proper psychological term. This is one that Ritchie's made up to make these things easy to remember, because it has a nice right brain image that goes with it, which is that you actually have a dark veil that comes over your face. And what I mean by this is your perceptions become skewed. So you experience a cycle, a negative spiral of negative depressive thoughts. You spiral downwards into an emotional state that we call depression, a feeling of being depressed, crushed by the weight of negativity and despair and doom. Now, what's the effect on that? Well, one of the bad side effects of that is that actually you're in such a negative emotional state that your perception starts to change. So you're full of negativity and shittiness and bad feelings. Well, negativity and shittiness and bad feelings then start to skew your perceptual filter, and it's like a veil of doom, or a veil of tears, comes over your own face. You can't see positivity anymore. The point is that you can't see anything positive. You see through a glass darkly, and your perceptual filters have fundamentally gotten dirty. They either need cleaning or they need replacing. Imagine just a pair of glasses on your face that's really, really dirty. Everything is dark, everything is dingy, everything is grainy. It's not real. You're no longer seeing that which is really there, because obviously in life there is going to be light, there is going to be darkness, there is going to be an array of different things going on, but you're only seeing the worst of everything. So when you go into an emotional, psychological state of negativity, your body and your brain and your perceptual filter's natural response to that is to see that which confirms your belief about reality. So you have an internal belief about reality, and then your mind, your eyes, your brain are out there looking for things that confirm it. Everything is shit. Okay, let's find examples. Shit. People are selfish. Let's pick out all the examples of everywhere in my environment, in the news, in the world, in culture, where people are selfish and mean. And you pick up all these different things, and it's like you have a perceptual filter which has changed. What does that perceptual filter do? Over a period of time, you then attract negative situations, or create negative situations, or move towards negative, shitty, horrible people, negative, shitty, horrible situations, which then reconfirm your belief that the world's a bad place. Bad things actually really do then start to happen to you. Your circumstances change again, so that bad things are happening again, and you then justify all these depressive thoughts, and you justify your depressive state, and the cycle cycles down and spirals downward, and it gets even worse. So you've got to be aware of that. What I would say to you is this: if you're depressed or in massive amounts of emotional pain right now, just for a moment accept the possibility that